Well, the third game of the season is here as Northwestern takes on Southern Illinois at 11 a.m. Central Time on the Big Ten Network on Saturday. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We appreciate it. We are available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube, wherever you can just search Locked On Northwestern on YouTube. You can find us. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment, a review. We'd love to interact with you. And today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we know that I'm going to keep the BetOnline ticker up there all day today for the most part. But we know that Northwestern plays their Week 3 opponent, Southern Illinois, the Salukis, on Saturday. So kind of as I looked at this game, I made a list of all the things I want to see out of this Northwestern team going against an inferior opponent in Southern Illinois. Right off the bat, I want to see Northwestern dominate the 6-inch war against an FCS opponent. They lost it last week on defense, especially on offense at times. They won it when they went straight at that Duke defense. When they tried to attack the edge, they did not. I want to see them run the football. Southern Illinois has done a pretty decent job stopping the run this year. That's been their strength of their defense. Can't really say that about the passing game. We'll talk about that here in a second. But Northwestern did not run the ball well last week against Duke. Ran the ball well against Nebraska, which is a bigger front. I just think that you need to get this run game going against a smaller, inferior opponent, and get some other guys involved other than Evan Hull. Get them rolling. Cam Porter, Andrew Clare, all the other guys in that running backs room, get them kind of going a little bit. On the flip side, Northwestern needs to stop the run. Last week did not do a good job of that. Against Nebraska, did a pretty decent job. And I think you need to make SIU look a lot more like Nebraska than you did Duke. If anything, you should be able to stop them better than you did Nebraska back in week 0. Next up, you got to win the trenches, and you have to win part of stopping the run is you have to win the trenches. Next up, DBs. It's time to play a complete game. You haven't really seen it. You've seen mistakes by veteran guys back there. Cam Mitchell being the one last week. You've seen some good plays. I just would like to see some tighter coverage. Your interception last week was a very, very fortunate bounce. Probably should have been a touchdown. And I think that this is a game where you continue to work on depth. Depth has been an issue right off the bat because you've gotten so banged up in that DBs group. Let's see some new faces out there. Let's see if some people can get some reps, maybe earn some playing time as this season progresses. Next up, limit explosives. Last week, there were 15, 16 explosive plays that Northwestern allowed. That's way too many. It starts with the DBs and it starts with the D-line. If you win the front, if you win the 6-inch war with the D-line, and then the DBs play a complete game, I don't think SIU is going to have very many explosive plays in this one. That's something I want to see Northwestern limit. Next up, pressure the quarterback. We have not seen a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks through 2 weeks. It's something that I want to see more of. Adetomiwa Adebawore got a sack last week, but I still expect more from him. Sean McLaughlin had some decent pressure in week 0. kind of disappeared in this week 2 game against Duke. I want to see both those guys lead the way, get some pressure, get a sack or two each, get a bunch of pressures, make SIU's quarterback uncomfortable, especially against an inferior opponent with probably one of the smaller offensive lines you're going to see this season. Finally, start fast. Back-to-back games to open this year where Northwestern has started very slow. An 11-point deficit against Nebraska, a 21-point deficit to Duke. It's an inferior team, so you shouldn't have an issue starting faster. You need to start faster. And I want to see this Northwestern team put this Southern Illinois team away early. I want to see you take advantage of playing an inferior opponent, put it away early, let younger guys get experience, get reps, build that depth. One thing it's worth noting, this isn't my things I'm going to be looking for, it's just an observation. SIU is awful against the pass. I think they're allowing like 380 yards per game so far through 2 games. In the passing game, let your receivers step up. Hey, it's a great opportunity to kind of take stock of what you have in the receivers room. Let Helinski feel comfortable. Let him get back there. Maybe see the backup. Maybe see Sullivan in there for a few snaps. Maybe see what you have in him for the future. I just think that you shouldn't, based on the trends, you should not have much of an issue with this SIU pass defense. And so that's my takes. That's what I want to see on Saturday. That's what the weakness that I noticed looking through this SIU team. In just a second, we're going to take a look around the Big Ten, see what games are going on there. We're going to make a pick, basically, I think, for every team in the Big Ten, just for fun. But first, let me tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest sports league, football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, well, when you look at the Big Ten this week, let's start with the headliner. I think the headliner, without a doubt, has to be that Penn State at Auburn game because it's the most intriguing game to me. I've obviously got a little bit of connection to the other side. Penn State on the road, number 22 Penn State on the road at Auburn is a 3-point favorite. Big road test for Penn State. You're going to find out a lot about what this team is. Difficult road atmosphere, but I think Penn State's got the better quarterback. I think they've got a defense that maybe is going to be better against the pass, or I think they could sell out for the run and make TJ Finley and that Auburn receiving corps try to beat them. Auburn's offense has not shown any signs of explosiveness. So give me Penn State -3 and the under 47.5. Next up, rematch of the game of the century. Number 6, Oklahoma at Nebraska. Oklahoma is an 11-point favorite coming in. And in my notes, I literally wrote, well, can Nebraska get off the mat? No interim head coach, Mickey Joseph. Scott Frost just got fired against an OU team that I think is going to be pretty solid this year. Give me OU -11 and give me over 66. I mean, we saw 88 points on the board 87 points on the board last week in the Nebraska-Georgia Southern game. I think they'll breeze by 66 in this one. Next up, UConn at number 4, Michigan. Michigan's 47.5-point favorites and hilarious spread. Michigan has another snooze fest on its hands. Joke of a non-conference schedule. But give me UConn plus 47.5. Give me that over 59.5. I believe in UConn's ability to put up a little bit of a fight, at least more so than people think. Next up, Purdue at Syracuse. Syracuse being a 1.5-point favorite. I think this is an interesting matchup. It's two teams that I think are pretty solid. Syracuse has shown life out of nowhere. Is Cuse for real? I don't know. I want to believe it. At the end of the day, better running back. Garrett Schrader, who kind of fits that offense with Sean Tucker, the running back. Give me Cuse -1.5 and under 60. Next up, Western Kentucky at Indiana. Indiana's a 6.5-point favorite. Is IU really any good? They got lucky against Illinois. Meanwhile, Western Kentucky, are there any remnants of that 2021 offense that was awesome? Give me Western Kentucky +6.5 and over 61. Next up, Rutgers at Temple. Rutgers, an 18-point favorite. Temple is horrendous. You saw Duke shut them out 30-0, I believe, in the opening week for Duke. Give me Rutgers -18 and over 44. I think Rutgers can put up some points, and maybe Temple can get on the scoreboard a little bit in this one. Next up, by the way, all these lines are according to BetOnline, our good friends, as you can see there on the bottom of the screen. Colorado at Minnesota. Minnesota, 27.5-point favorites. Colorado is a disaster, and I would make the pick Minnesota -27.5. But I would also take that under 47. I don't believe in Colorado's ability to score. Next up, New Mexico State at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 37.5-point favorite. New Mexico State, legitimately in the conversation for worst team in the FBS. Wisconsin coming off a loss to Washington State at home. Do we see them get back on the horse? Do we see them succeed? I think so. I'm going to take Wisconsin -37.5. I'm going to take the over 45.5. I think Wisconsin may have the chance to pass that number on their own. Next up, Toledo at number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State 32-point favorites in this one. Ohio State's offense, too good. C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson. I'll take Ohio State -32 and under 62.5 in that one. Next up, number 11, Michigan State at Washington. This one could be really interesting. Washington is a 3.5-point favorite in this one. Washington might be pretty good. And Michigan State, they might come down to earth a little bit after last season. I'm going to take Michigan State, though, +3.5. If it was 3, I'd be tempted to take Washington. But +3.5, I'll take that extra hook there. Under 56.5, though, for the over-under. That's my pick there. Next up, Nevada at Iowa. Iowa's a 24-point favorite. Look, Iowa sucks. Iowa's offense, especially, really sucks. So, given that, there's not a game on this earth where I think Iowa should be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. Give me Nevada +24 and under 40. I just don't, until Iowa hits an over. I'm gonna take the under every time until that offense shows me any signs of life. I'm gonna take the under in every game. Finally, a good one here. SMU on the road at Maryland. Maryland is a 2.5-point favorite in that one. SMU looks pretty good. Maryland's explosive on offense. I'll take SMU +2.5 on the road at Maryland. I'll take under 73.5. That's a ridiculously high number. They'll probably find a way to hit the over, but I'll take the under on that one. Now, that is the Big Ten slate for the week. We're going to take a look at the other games around the country in the next segment. But first, you need to know what your team is up against across the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Every day, host Nate Dickinson and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Make Locked On Big Ten your second listen. Locked On Big Ten. All right, here we go. Let's jump into these games happening this weekend. Let's start with a Friday night one. FSU, 2.5-point favorites on the road at Louisville. So Louisville team, they got smashed by Syracuse, but then beat a what I'm starting to believe is a bad UCF Gus Malzahn team. FSU's may not be good either, but give me FSU minus 2.5. That one and the under 57. Next up, Old Dominion at Virginia. Virginia's 8.5-point favorite in this one. I picked this one because ODU already got their in-state rivals, already beat Vatech at the beginning of the season. With that in mind, I don't know how much better Virginia is. Give me ODU plus 8.5. I'll take the under 53. I know it's a new coaching staff there in Virginia. I'll take the under in this one. This one right here, I'm calling my shot. Last week, we had the Sun Belt kill everybody in college football, including Nebraska, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, South Alabama at UCLA. UCLA, 15.5-point favorites. Well, just talked about South Al and the Sun Belt. Give me South Al plus 15.5. Give me South Al money line plus 450. Give me that over 59 in this one. I think South Al's a pretty good team. UCLA has been a little shaky under Chip. Maybe Chip Kelly falls here. And this is just another one. Another pelt on the wall for the Sun Belt. Give me South Al in that one. Cal at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's 11.5-point favorite. New starting quarterback is out for the year. Two bad offenses. Give me Cal plus 11.5 until Notre Dame shows me life on that offense. And give me under 40.5. Next up, Vandy on the road at NIU. NIU's a 2-point favorite. Look, Vandy's bad. I don't know why everybody's talking themselves into Vandy. I mean, down here where I live, everybody at one of the local websites picked Vanderbilt to win this game. Not a chance in my mind. I would take NIU minus 2, and I'll take under 60. Just don't believe in Vanderbilt's offense. Next up, number 20, Ole Miss at Georgia Tech. Ole Miss is a 17-point favorite in that one. Give me Ole Miss minus 17. I don't think Georgia Tech's that good. I think Jeff Collins on his way out. I'll take over 63 in that one, though. Big one right here. Number 12, BYU at number 25, Oregon. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite in that one. Look, BYU has a better quarterback, and they're more physical. Give me BYU plus 3.5. BYU money line at plus 145. Over 58 in that one. Kansas at Houston. Kansas is 2-0. Kansas is 2-0 for what? The first time since 2011? Kansas is 1-0 in Big 12 play for the first time since 2009. Not a Big 12 game here. Gonna be a Big 12 game next year. But Kansas at Houston. Houston is an 8.5-point favorite. But give me Houston minus 8.5. I think Houston has had a tough schedule to open out. Kansas turned out to be a little better than probably they bargained for. But I think they get back on track after a tough overtime loss last week. Houston minus 8.5, and I'll take the over 58 in that one. Finally, as we come down the stretch here, Mississippi State at LSU. Mississippi State is a 2.5-point favorite in that one. Look, State's a better team with a better quarterback. Give me Mississippi State minus 2.5. Give me over 53. I just don't see a way LSU wins that game. I know it's in Death Valley. I don't care. Texas Tech at number 16, NC State. NC State is a 10-point favorite in this one. You know, with the performance that we saw Texas Tech put up against Houston last week, give me Texas Tech plus 10 and under 56. Next up, I love this one. UTSA at number 21, Texas. Texas is a 12.5-point favorite. Is it possible to have a letdown spot after a loss? Kind of emotional loss. Lose your quarterback Quinn Ewers last week for Texas in that 20-19 loss to number 1 Alabama. Now number 2 Alabama. UTSA is good. They showed it when they took Houston to the wire in overtime in week 1. Give me UTSA plus 12.5. Give me the under 59.5. Jeff Traylor keeps it close in Austin. All right. Number 13, Miami at number 24, Texas A&M. Texas A&M's a 6-point favorite in this game. Texas A&M is starting a new quarterback in Max Johnson, but I don't think that matters when you go against this Miami front. Miami +6, Miami money line at +195, and give me the over 45. Somebody has to score points in this game, and I think Miami can do enough to kind of run this Texas A&M team into some trouble at home. And beware, because if Texas A&M loses, 1-5 going into the bye week is on the table. Things can get bad very, very, very quickly for Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. Finally, last one here, Fresno State at USC. That's Lincoln Riley's USC. They're 11.5-point favorites in that one. Look, as long as Jake Haener is the quarterback at Fresno State is this plucky G5 team that can give anybody a fight any given day. Give me Fresno +11.5. Give me the over 73.5 because USC's defense is awful. And I believe in Jake Haener's ability to score, and I also believe in Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams and company, their ability to score as well. That's going to do it for today. Those are the picks, looks at the games around the country, around the Big Ten, and then also a little bit of preview of this Northwestern Southern Illinois game. Things that I think Northwestern needs to get right, get going against an FCS team. Probably not going to be the most fair matchup, most competitive game you see Northwestern play this year, but it is a good opportunity for this Northwestern team to get better heading into a more difficult Big Ten schedule here in a couple weeks when they jump back in after several weeks off after beating Nebraska in week 0 in Dublin. I'm your host, Carter Bird. Thank you for listening to Locked On Northwestern and making us your first listen. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, comment, turn on notifications. Don't miss a show. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarterBird13. And I will see you next time.